Good morning, my friends. Happy Wednesday. It's Watercolor Wednesday. This is Tanya at SideGigCrafts, and we're going to be doing some watercoloring today. We're going to make it easy. We're going to make it super easy. We're starting from scratch. I'm going to teach you how to do something that I've learned. And no, I am not a watercolor artist. No, I have not had any formal training. I'm just been playing with it and watching YouTube videos and learning, just like you may be doing. So I encourage you to get out your watercolor paper. Any kind is going to work. I'm using this Canson XL watercolor. It works all right. It's not my absolute favorite, but it works and it's inexpensive. You can go get it at, I believe I got this at Walmart for like $5 maybe. And there are 30 pages in here. It's cold pressed, durable. It is good. I was gonna say it's cotton, but I don't know that that's true. It's probably some kind of blend, but it works okay, especially for practicing, and you know, extremely affordable for your practice. So I got a couple pieces here that I must hold on to those. First today we are going, actually let's use this one. Let's use the big one. We're going to practice today. I just have a cup of water here. I have a really cheap brush that I got from gosh knows where. Doesn't even have a brand on it. It's probably from one of those packs somewhere. I wanted to use an inexpensive brush today just because you know, you can just grab a brush, Dollar Tree. It doesn't matter. Just try. I got out my Munyo watercolor paints. This is kind of a midline watercolor. It doesn't matter. Get out what you've got. Crayola, if that's what you've got. It's okay. We're playing today. We're just going to look at how the water and the paints move and learn from that. If you understand a little bit how the water moves and the paint moves, and you learn to be okay with that and how to control it a little bit, it makes it easier. If you learn how to, or practice using your brush and how to handle that and get what you want on the paper, that's all part of the process. Now, mind you, water has a mind of its own. I know you can't see, I'm just putting clean water on the page, just enough to wet it. This paper likes to soak up and dry pretty quickly, so I have to work a little bit quickly. I'm gonna just put some color on here. I don't even care what color. I'm gonna go to the edge of that circle and just touch it and watch where that goes. So look how that spreads out in that water. Now the quality of your paper, the pigment in the paints that you use, it's all going to affect how that paint spreads, and you'll have to learn that from with your own materials. But it's really kind of cool to watch how it goes. I just went in a circle. I'm just kind of, I'm not even at the edge of my circle. I've got more water on there than that. And you can actually work with this a bit and just kind of let it spread and play and mingle. And I actually did put too much water on there. But that's part of the process, is learning how much is too much, how much isn't too much, you know, what it's going to do. So I've now made a circle. That's all going to be water and pigment, right? So that's kind of fun. I'm going to put actually some more pigment in there. I'm not going to add more water because I've got too much, but I'm just going to dip my brush in that paint and just kind of go around the edges like here and see what that does and watch it spread. So we're just playing. We're not making anything particular. Okay, we're going to watch and see what that does. Now I'm going to make another circle. This circle is going to be nearby that circle, but it's not going to touch that circle. And I know, again, you can't see it because it's clean water. This time I'm going to use a little less water. I have to kind of lean to see where my water is because I can't see it either with the light shining the way it is. I need a better lighting setup. All right, this one I'm going to make, let's make blue. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to pop that color in there. And actually some of my water already dried. And that's okay. So the more paint that you got on your brush, the less water, the brighter, the bolder, the stronger that pigment's going to be. It's just a matter of ratio. The water waters down the pigment, right? And your colors are going to respond differently too, because the pigments are made from different minerals and stuff like that. So even the different paints are going to act differently. And you kind of have to learn to be okay with that. Now what's happening, let me show you this. This is what's happening. Now I know I put more pigment on the outside, but it's kind of spreading because what's happening is because of the amount of water I used on here, my paper is kind of bubbling up and it's causing that water to settle. So it's moving down around the edges of that valley. So that pigment is going out around that way. So I know that because I can see that. It's crazy. I don't like this brush at all, but I'm used to using the other one. We can actually move this pigment around where we want it. Look at that. It's just really easy to move. Say I want more over here, I can do that. And now I've kind of got it shaded. So it's going to be darker around the edges. And it's going to be lighter as if my light is coming this way. Because I moved that pigment around. So I let it settle down there and I pulled it back up. So just playing with your brush like that is going to help move that pigment where you want it to be. Okay, you don't want to work with it too much because it'll start affecting your paper and it'll start kind of doing funny things. So you'll start see that it's lighter on the top on this one. Now I'm going to do something really cool. Let's take color on this one so you can actually see what's happening. We're going to take this fun cold pink color. That's the name of it. Let's maybe take a little bit more of that cold pink color. Put it on our paper. And we're going to get this quite wet. And then what we're going to do, see what would be a fun color to go with this. Let's do, actually I'm going to add a little bit more because by the time I get that other one on the paper, it's going to need. Okay, now we're going to use an orange. And you'll see why. This one is orange. It's actually called orange. We're going to make another circle nearby. Let's get plenty of water in this one as well. We're going to put these close. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add plenty of water to both of these. Because then what we're going to do, we're going to take this one and we're going to swipe just to the edge of this one and watch what happens. That ink, well, it didn't work. It didn't work quite right. I didn't have enough pigment. It wasn't wet enough. So what's going to happen is because I closed that water in together, these will start seeping into each other. You can see it's starting to come in there. A little more dramatic on different paper, different brush, different person doing it. But it happens all the same. And the colors can start blending that way, which is really, really cool. So you can actually plan, like if you're going to do a flower or something, you can actually plan for those colors to do that. Let's see if I can get it to do what I'm trying to explain here. Let's just kind of play around a little bit here. Sometimes you want those colors to muddle up and sometimes you just don't. You know, and it's just how you want to do it. So I'm going to make a really quick, easy flower. Just using my brush to lay it down here. And that's all the same color. Now, if I go in here and add, let's see, how can I make this dramatic and still pretty? Let's see, let's use I'm going to use a little bit of a permanent violet, so a darker purple. I don't know if this is going to be very visible because it's going to be very similar in color. And then I'm going to take, oh, I should have used just indigo. Let me just use indigo. I don't know if that's big of enough color difference either. Indigo is a fun color. It's one of my favorites. So if I go in here and start dabbing this indigo, now it's a dark, like a blue jean blue, purpley color. You guys know the color. Now if I tap this into these puddles, you'll see it start moving into there. So if it touches, it's gonna, the color will start spreading up into, you can see it here. I don't know if you can see that very well. See if you can see that. The color kind of just spreading in there. This one's not wet enough. See, there it goes. Yep, I tapped it and it just kind of travels in because the pools of water are going to soak up that color. Now what I would do with that, in this instance, I would probably wait for this to dry because it's going to be, and if it puddles too much or pools too much, like this one is almost all taken over by that indigo, what I can do is just kind of brush some of that back and pull that pigment back down, that purple back down into there, or add some more. So it'll help push some of that back. Like this one's too far in. So we'll just kind of pull that back a little bit. So you can still work with this, even watercolors, you can adjust the color. Even though water wants to do its own thing, remember it's always going to go to the lowest place. So if my water, or it's going to travel, right? Water follows gravity. But look how this is spread now. And you can even play with that. It's still wet. So if I wanted to move this around a little bit, or make this maybe come around the edges here, I can do that. Use that to help shade it. I can do that. So if those bubbles kiss, the colors will combine. So it's something to just remember as you're planning your painting, that could happen. So let's go ahead and take pink. Let's take a pink flower. And actually I'm going to go outward on some of these. So the color is more out there at the edges. Remember, I'm not a professional. When you're doing these petals like that, if you don't want them to combine, make sure that you leave just a little, at least a little bit of space in between those petals if you're making flowers, so that those colors won't combine if you don't want them to. I can't remember what color I used. I think it was this one. Just kind of make those that way. And then if I go over here and make a tiny purple one, and just kind of dab in color here, and then if I let these touch, they're going to combine. That color is going to spread up into the other one if I let it touch. But if I don't want it to, and it did, I can always swoop that back up and add more of the original color. Okay, so you can correct it. You can always layer over if you're careful and work that color back in if it's not enough. So if you're not quite happy with it, you can go back. You can work with it. Let's put a little, look how cheap my brush is. My top just came off. That's the kind of brush I'm using right now. Why? Because you can use whatever you got. Use what you got, you guys. Look at that. Oh, there's a good example of how it spreads. Look at that. Okay, and here's a good example of how to fix it. I don't want that like that. So let's pull that back, and it's going up in that one. I don't want it that much. We don't mind if those colors blend a bit because it's the same flower, right? So those colors can blend, and it actually adds some really coolness to it, but maybe we don't want it to go quite that far. So we'll just kind of control that just a little bit. We'll add a little bit more color in here and kind of work that back in. And we can add the pink back in too. Ugh, I just pulled it off again. Oops, I put too much water. See, I'm no expert. I make lots of mistakes. No expert. But if you're patient and you just work with it very carefully, take your time. This is definitely not a fast results process. You gotta take your time. remember to, you got to also be able to accept what the water's going to do. It's going to do its own thing. You won't be able to control everything. See how this one made blooms? It's really cool how this one did this. It's got lighter white in there. You can see how the pigment kind of moved. It's lighter on this side. Remember, I put the darker, more pigment on this side. This one did the same thing. You can kind of see the movement in there. It's lighter on the top. This just kind of spread all the way through. Even though I spread it at one point, it still continued to move, which is cool. It actually adds to the effect. That's part of what watercolor is all about. So some of my favorite colors are greens, and I love how the greens mix. Let's try some leaves. So we'll just do a simple little leaf. And you can see how I left the colors right where they're kind of laying. Why? Because I want it to be very variegated. I want it to have different amounts of green in different places. I'm going to take another green and I'm just going to kind of drop it and see where it goes and see what it does. And I'm just going to add some different color in there. Just a little here and there. It's going to add to it. We can add another type of green. Maybe there's another leaf behind it. I need to glue this thing back on. So we can drop another leaf back there. It's a different color. I left a little gap in the middle. That looks, you know, sometimes that will look like the stem in the middle of the leaf. We can add some green into this one. We can even make these two kiss so that the colors blend, which would be cool because they are the same plant. See how that's just moving over there? If it's the same plant, it makes sense that they would have some of the same color, right? Even though we used a different color for this leaf, this one can move over there. We can do the same thing on the other side of that leaf because there's a lot of water on that one still. We can use, let's see. Let's use this color. We'll just make this, might be very similar to the one I put already. We can put that one in there, and I didn't make it very close, did I? It's going to be hard to make this one kiss really unless I make it really big, but that's okay. We can do it. So let's make that one do that. Okay, so those colors can blend. We can add in maybe some gold in there. I don't know, we're just playing, so it doesn't even matter if it doesn't look quite right, but got a little pink in there from the flower, didn't I? It touched. And you know what? That's not such a bad thing either because sometimes the leaves will pick up that pink color of the plant. I actually have some gardenias in the front that have kind of a reddish tone to them right now, and I don't know where that came from, but it's kind of cool. They don't normally carry that color in those leaves, at least not on the variety that I have. So we could do, you know, these are just examples. This is just kind of watching how that color goes down, and once you've practiced with it a little bit and kind of understand your paints, you'll be set to do even more. So that's all we're doing today is just kind of looking at that and seeing how these pigments work, seeing how that paint will affect your paper, how to control that brush to kind of get the effect that you want, all that good stuff. I'll put some green on the edge there and watch that, see how that goes into the design. Trying to use some colors that are really off so that you guys can tell the difference. Let's put some brown, not off like they won't go together, but you know, so that you guys can see the difference in the colors and how they spread. Do that. We can put a darker green in there, see where that goes. Maybe up towards the middle. But there's so many colors. The one cool thing, especially if you're doing nature, there's no such thing as perfect in nature. Look around you. You know, the leaves are all different. None of them are the same. Snowflakes, there's no snowflakes the same. Watercolor is an art, is kind of an abstract art in some ways. And look how these leaves just kind of turned out. So different. They're not exact. There's no straight lines here, but you know they're leaves, right? That's kind of what you got to look at. It's just a different way. Unless you're going for perfection. Now, some people are very, very good at that. Let's start here. Let's start at figuring out what the pigments do. I'm no perfectionist. I'm not going to be that person that's going to be able to teach you that stuff. I can't do it. I don't know. I find it amazing, those people that can. So much talent. But that's not my art. I'm a little bit more abstract, and I love that this green, this bright green, it wasn't something that I was going to be comfortable with normally, but I really like the way that it outlined that. Let's see if I can get this up closer to the camera. I'm hoping that you guys can see the difference, or at least close to the light, the difference, this little bright green here, and then we've got some brown here. We've got some darker green in the middle. It really goes together. Look at these leaves, imperfection, and it's perfect. It's perfectly imperfect, right? Who says that? Who tells us that all the time? Shada Campbell. She's a watercolor artist and she's amazing. And she'll tell you that. Make it perfectly imperfect. So let's play with red. Let's make a heart. Let's make a heart. Valentine's Day is coming up. Let's make a heart. We're just playing today. It really, that's interesting. Permanent Rose is the color I'm using right now. This pigment is very different as well. It's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Transparent, transparent. Not quite as opaque as some. Beautiful color. All right, let's go ahead and add some of that into, this edge is already thick enough. Let's put some more there and see how that works. Just let that spread a bit. This side is a lot lighter. I'm going to actually add pink to that side and see what happens. This is the Opera Pink. This is the brightest pink that I have in this kit. And this paper is not exactly wet on this side anymore. But we're going to add this to this side and see if it spreads pretty well. We can always add a little bit more water to here if we need to. To be careful with that because you'll get weird blooms and different design issues. If you don't want that or don't like that, that could be a problem if you do that. So be careful if you don't like it. And so there we go. Play with that, and that should kind of spread. You can see the pigments moving again. This is really dark and pooling over here, so I'm thinking it's too much water. So I'm going to kind of pick that up. I don't like that white either. Not to play with it too much. Again, we want the water to do its job. And then we're going to go back in with cold pink. This is kind of a really fun magenta color. I'm just going to kind of drop this in the middle. I don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to play with this other water and this other color, and it should add a fun effect, hopefully. That was the idea anyway. It looks like all my red swooped into there somehow, or soaked in. I don't know. I don't know which. Now, if you feel like you got too much, because I feel like I do, and you can just dip your paper towel in there, and that actually adds a fun effect too sometimes. Kind of make it spotted. But I want to go back in with that permanent red a little bit and go back around this edge. I really liked the dark around the edge. And hopefully that will, I'm kind of dabbing it, trying to make it just feather out just a little bit into the other color. Reintroduce some water into those spots without too much play. Let's see how that dries. I'm curious. I don't know. See the sleeve? Now, one of the fun things, once you've got your leaves and your things that are you've painted, if it's not exactly, well, if it's not what you want, you can always go back. That's what I really love about the micron pens too, is once these are dry, I love these microns because you can use them to actually add some of the detail. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can add some of the detail that maybe is missing for you, or just come up with your own artistic style. So maybe we want to add veins or, you know, depth. Maybe we want to, whatever you want to do, you can come up with your own style. Is that dry? It's not really dry. You can go back to your flowers. Let's just outline them, and you can detail them. But you can use your markers to help you get the detail that you're looking for if you aren't achieving that with your watercolors. Or just, like I said, come up with your own style. I love the look of the micron pens with the watercolors. And I feel like it's kind of part of my style. This one's not dry, so I'm going to go very carefully around it. So we can go, this one is dry, I think. We can go swoop-de-doo. This one's dry. Just have fun. I'm not going to draw on that one because my pen will ruin it. So, yeah, and then your pen and your flower. Let's see. Maybe you want to just add some scribbles in here. Just scribble around, you know, it kind of looks like the little bumps in the middle of the flower. Flowers are never perfectly smooth petals. They're always, you know, some shape to them, whether it's folding or whatever. They don't have to be drawn out perfect. Perhaps part of it's folded, so we just kind of cup it that way. My pen got wet, I think. There, we got a little something different. We've added some detail to it, bring it out a little bit more. Again, it's part of, you can do this as part of your style. It's just, that's how you do it. Let me show you in my previous journal, if I have it here. I think I do. I think I did. I think I do. I have it here. That's kind of what I was doing when I was filling out my bullet journal before, and plan to do again, because again, it's part of my style. It's how I like it. Some of these you'll see in my watercolors. I didn't actually, are these? Yeah, these are watercolors. You can see how the paint spread in there. I didn't use the micron pen for these. I used just my brushes and my paints. Here as well, hopefully you can see that. I didn't use the micron brush, the paint, pens. This one was actually done with markers. But if you look here, now these were done with, these aren't watercolor, but you can see it's the same technique. I use the micron pens to just kind of outline it and add some detail to the flowers. Did the same thing down here. These are done with marker as well, but you can see how I was doing that with the micron pens. It's the same process. So you can just add your detail, add your lines, have fun with it. You know, you can make it your own style. And that's kind of what I was doing there. So let's see, do I have more? These were done with markers, but the same thing once again. I didn't use a lot of watercolor in here except things that I taped in because I was afraid to ruin the paper. But it's just, it's how you want it. You know, there are no rules. You get to do you. But I really, really love the look of the watercolor with the micron. Look how this is drying. It's kind of cool. It's a little muddied, a little overworked perhaps, but it's kind of neat. That could be something. We'll leave that one alone. Let's do one more heart. What do you think? Since Valentine's Day is coming. Let's use this color. This is going to be cold pink. Maybe we could do two colors kissing like that. We'll do two different colors. We'll do half this way in the cold pink. And we'll just kind of make it kind of messy in the middle. And let's do, what color should we do? Pink and blue, why not? Let's just do pink and blue. Because it should turn a purple in the middle. That color wasn't wet yet. think I just accidentally used 2 colors, but that's okay, they'll blend. See if I can get this heart, side of the heart the same shape-ish. This side is a little bigger. I'm not the best at making hearts. I know it's really simple, but my brain doesn't want to. See, I just used another color. And that's okay, because we're going to touch this in the middle and we're going to watch those colors spread. Let's just do that. Let's just dab it in the middle. I don't know if the pink's going to spread over because of it was drier, but look how it's just spreading. I just touched the colors together. Look at it spread. Isn't that amazing? I didn't do that. The water's doing that. It actually looks like veins through the heart. Oh my goodness. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it's kind of cool, right? Let's see if we can even this one out. Now what happens if I dab a little bit of this over here? Will it still spread? It may not, because I've let it sit for a while. But check it out. That's really, really cool that the water will spread it like that. So I just encourage you to get out your watercolors, play with them, just get out a practice piece and see what happens, you know? Once you figure it out a little bit more, how your colors will work and how your paper works, how your brush works, how your materials work, you're going to be able to use that information, whether you realize you're using it or not, and you'll be able to create some beautiful, beautiful things. And over time, it's just going to get better and better and better. Practice, right? Just more practice. So there we go. That's a funky looking heart. I tell you what. It's kind of cool though. I don't know. I might use it for a project. Somebody might be getting a Valentine with this on it. Who knows? Look at that. Kind of cool. This one's kind of cool too. You know, it would be good. I don't know that I'd use that as a statement, but I could definitely use it as a backdrop. It's not that pretty for a statement. I need to work with my paints again some more. You know, I haven't practiced in a long time either, so it's coming back to me, and I probably, this isn't my favorite paper to make things that I want to keep. I can work with it, but it's not my favorite, so it's just really hard to work with sometimes. I shouldn't say that. It's not hard to work with. It's hard for me to get the results. I'm not used to anything anymore. I'm just talking at this point. Please forgive me. I'm just talking. I don't know. Let's put some indigo in there. But just, you can just play with your colors. Remember, nothing's perfect. The section around here is the driest right now, so this isn't going to spread much. It will a little bit probably, but most of my pigment, most of my water is already out here because that's the way I brushed it. So if you brush to the middle, like if I make my petals start out here and then come up in the middle, then the water is going to be down at the end. So that's where the water is going to be, because that's where it's going to pool. I think I just grabbed another color. And then if you get them all to the middle and then make them kiss, then that color is going to spread back into the petals. Oops, I went the wrong way with that one, didn't I? You get the point. And then let's put this in the middle. So if I just dab that indigo in there, what it's going to do, it's going to pull into those petals, and it's going to add some of that color in to the petals as well. Very cool. Now I could train that. I could kind of use that to my advantage If I wanted to, watch, let's see if I can do this right, the way I'm trying to explain it. If I do this and go, gosh, I hope you guys can see this, go here. I'm trying to make it big enough that you guys can see it. I'm not being a perfectionist with my petals, so please forgive me. I'm not trying to be perfect here at all. But I do want you to be able to see it. If I do that and make these four kiss, and then I leave a little gap down here when I make the other petals, these can kiss too. And when I say kiss, I just mean that they're bumping up against each other and sharing. They're sharing. They're swapping. I'm gonna take a little bit of color out of this one because it's too much water. So I'll just lay my brush in there and just pick that up. Just kind of sop it up like a paper towel would. And then if I go in here and add just a touch, it's too much water again, just a touch of the indigo. I think that's part of my problem. This brush is picking up so much water. It's dropping different. So if I put just a little bit indigo in here, it's going to just pick up on these top ones. I did touch that one. Just the ones that I touched. So if I leave a little gap down here, these will stay the same color, but then these four will shade into that indigo color so that it'll just kind of bleed into those, which is kind of cool. So you can actually use that to your advantage. And then I can go in once it's dry and use a micron to fill in the details, or I can go back in with more watercolor paint and, you know, fix that. You can see on this one how it actually went into the petals too. It's still doing its thing. And then we can add, let's see, we can add some leaves here. Yeah, this brush is horrible. But it's what you got. It's what you got. It's what you got. And you can definitely make some beautiful things no matter what your materials are. No matter what. It just takes different practice, that's all. You just have to figure out how to make it work. Put some different green in there. Should we put some of that bright green again? Because that was kind of cool how it did that on the line, right? So we'll put some of that over here. Just a touch. We can put some brown. This isn't actually brown, but we can just kind of put this in the middle. See where that goes. There we go. So you can always go back and add details wherever you want. Look how this has turned out. It's kind of cool. It's got some puddling and some blooming and some weird lines in it because of the way the water is set, you know, but again, that's all going to be affected by the amount of water you use, the pigment that you use, the paints that you use, the paper that you use, all the factors is going to affect how this turns out. On a different paper, that's going to be different. It's going to look different. Each time it's going to be different because there's no way to measure the pigment on your brush. So you just have to work with it and you know, figure out how that works for you. This is almost dry, this flower. You can see how the puddles of the darker pigment, where I went to the middle, that's where it laid the most pigment. Even though it was like one swoop, the outsides are a little lighter and the insides are darker. That paint in the middle also helps spread into that and make darker spots too. So once your paint is dry, you can actually go, like if I wanted to add some different colors and things to these, I could go back. I don't remember what color I used, but we'll just use this one. We'll pretend like it's this one. If I wanted to go back and add some detail to this, I could definitely go back. It's not going to spread like it did the first time because that isn't all wet. And you don't necessarily want to reactivate all that, but you can add different layers to it and work with those, blend them, what have you. It's just all going to take some process, some work. But if I wanted it to be darker around the edges, I could do something like that. And just kind of blend it, work with it. You want to go lightly because you don't want to tear your paper. Remember, you're working with water and paper. So you just have to work with it. Kind of cool, right? You could add purple to the blue. Let's try that. Let's see what happens there. We're just going to kind of go around the same. Of course, we're going to get a different color because now we're mixing colors. Sometimes that might be what you want. So we can blend those as well. Here we go. And now we have something different. Now this is going to dry a little bit more purple than blue than the other side because it's got the colors mixed up. So lots of things you can do with watercolor. Don't be scared of it. Get it out. Try it. Give it a shot. Use what you got and see how it works for you. By no means is this a masterpiece. By no means is this something to frame. No way. But you know what? I learned things today. Whether I can express them or not, I learned things. I learned things about my technique. I learned that this brush holds too much water for me, and I need to find ways to take some of that water out before I paint, because I can see the puddles and the lines and stuff. That's because there's too much water. So I learned that about this brush. I learned a little bit about pulling and pushing the inks and how they're going to work. I learned about the green around the outside, that I actually like that effect. I learned how some of these colors mixed and what they look like when they mixed. I learned about how far I can go with the brush so that it does or doesn't touch the other paint. I learned a little bit about how the micron pen is going to work to affect the design. I learned things today too. So just get your stuff out. I encourage you to practice. We're not going to learn any real lessons on how to paint a particular thing today, but I just encourage you, just make circles, make bloopers, make hearts, make flowers, make whatever. Just learn how it works for you. There's different techniques and different procedures. You're not going to know until you get out your pen or your paints and your water and your brush. You're not going to know how that works for you until you get it out and try. So on this Watercolor Wednesday, I just want to encourage you to do so. And I hope you will. And I'd love to hear about your results. And as always, I appreciate you guys being here. Have a wonderful day. This is going to be it for now. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.